In the spring of 1943, the verdant hills and rugged mountains of northern Greece bore witness to a struggle that would define the spirit of resistance against tyranny. The German occupation forces, confident in their mechanized superiority, dismissed the local Greek resistance as a mere nuisance. They laughed at the sight of mule caravans winding through the narrow mountain passes, believing that such antiquated methods could never challenge their iron grip on the region. Yet, beneath the surface of this derision lay a simmering resolve among the Greek people, a determination to reclaim their homeland from the oppressive yoke of occupation. The German Wehrmacht, equipped with tanks and trucks that could traverse the most challenging terrains, underestimated the ingenuity of the Greek partisans. They viewed the National Liberation Army of Greece, known as ELAS, as little more than a ragtag group of insurgents, incapable of mounting a serious challenge to their authority. However, the very mountains that the Germans believed would facilitate their control were also the same mountains that sheltered the resistance fighters, allowing them to launch a series of operations that would disrupt German supply lines and alter the course of the conflict. By the time the spring sun cast its warm glow over the Pindus Pass, the ELAS partisans began to formulate a plan that would exploit the vulnerabilities the Germans had overlooked. With the support of local communities, they prepared to demonstrate that the spirit of resistance could not be extinguished by mere mockery or military might. The resistance prepared for a confrontation that would test the resolve of both the occupiers and the occupied. The Pindus Pass, a vital artery in the network of German supply lines, stretched between the towns of Ioannina and Larissa, serving as a crucial route for the transportation of troops, equipment, and provisions. This mountainous corridor, characterized by steep cliffs and narrow roads, was significant for its logistical importance and strategic positioning within the broader context of the war. The Germans, who had established a formidable presence in Greece following their invasion in April 1941, relied heavily on this route to maintain their control over the region. The geography of northern Greece, with its rugged terrain and isolated villages, presented a unique challenge to the occupying forces. The Pindus mountain range, which runs through the heart of the region, is dotted with deep gorges and hidden pathways that are often inaccessible to mechanized vehicles. This natural landscape, while daunting to the Germans, provided the ELAS partisans with a tactical advantage. Many of the resistance fighters hailed from the very villages that lay nestled in these mountains, giving them an intimate knowledge of the terrain that would prove invaluable in their operations. Daily life for the Greek people under occupation was fraught with hardship. The German military presence brought with it a regime of fear and repression. Food shortages were common, as the occupiers requisitioned supplies for their troops, leaving the local population to fend for themselves. Many families struggled to put food on the table, relying on subsistence farming and the barter system to survive. The resilience of the Greek people was evident in their ability to adapt to these dire circumstances, but the desire for liberation simmered beneath the surface. The ELAS emerged in this context as a beacon of hope for those yearning for freedom. Formed in 1942, the organization quickly gained traction among the populace, drawing support from various segments of society, including peasants, intellectuals, and former soldiers. The partisans operated on the principles of guerrilla warfare, utilizing their knowledge of the land to conduct hit-and-run attacks against German patrols and supply convoys. Their reliance on mule caravans, once mocked by the Germans, became a crucial logistical component of their operations, allowing them to transport weapons, supplies, and explosives through the treacherous mountain paths. When the ELAS fighters began to organize and strategize, they recognized the importance of local support in their efforts. The villages surrounding the Pindus Pass became integral to their operations, providing shelter, food, and intelligence on German movements. The bond between the partisans and the local population was forged in a shared desire for liberation, as families risked their lives to aid the resistance fighters. This collaboration not only strengthened the ELAS but also fostered a sense of unity among the Greek people, who were determined to reclaim their homeland from the clutches of occupation. The Germans, blinded by their initial confidence, failed to recognize the growing strength of the resistance. Their dismissive attitude towards the ELAS and their logistical methods would soon be put to the test. When the spring of 1943 unfolded, the partisans began to devise a plan that would exploit the vulnerabilities the Germans had overlooked. The Pindus Pass, with its strategic significance, became the focal point of their operations, and the resistance prepared for a confrontation that would challenge the very foundations of German control in Greece. The ELAS's plan to disrupt the Pindus Pass involved a series of coordinated attacks on German supply convoys and infrastructure. The partisans aimed to exploit the Germans' reliance on mechanized transport by targeting the very routes and bridges that facilitated their movement. The Mule Caravans, once a source of mockery, became an essential element of this strategy, enabling the partisans to transport explosives and other materials to strategic locations where they could inflict maximum damage on the occupying forces. When the summer of 1943 approached, the ELAS fighters, armed with their knowledge of the terrain and the support of the local population, were ready to launch their audacious plan. The Germans, confident in their control over the region, remained unaware of the storm that was about to descend upon them. The Pindus Pass, once a symbol of their dominance, would soon become the site of a fierce struggle for liberation, as the Greek resistance prepared to challenge the occupiers. In late summer 1943, the ELAS partisans put their meticulously crafted plan into action. The first phase of their operation involved a series of coordinated attacks on German supply convoys traveling along the Ioannina-Larissa road. Utilizing their mule caravans, the partisans transported explosives to predetermined locations, where they lay in wait for the opportune moment to strike. The initial attacks were executed with precision and stealth. Under the cover of darkness, ELAS fighters positioned themselves along the narrow mountain passes, ready to ambush the unsuspecting German convoys. As the first convoy approached, the partisans detonated explosives, targeting the lead vehicles and creating a chaotic blockade. The explosions reverberated through the mountains, signaling the beginning of a sustained campaign of sabotage. Caught off guard by the sudden onslaught, the German forces scrambled to respond. The narrowness of the passes, combined with the destruction of key infrastructure, rendered their mechanized units ineffective. The once mocked mule caravans had proven their worth, enabling the partisans to strike with impunity and retreat before the Germans could mount a counterattack. The success of the initial ambushes emboldened the ELAS fighters, who quickly moved to execute the next phase of their plan. Over the following weeks, they launched a series of attacks on bridges and culverts along the Pindus Pass, systematically dismantling the German supply network. Each explosion further isolated the German forces, cutting off their access to vital resources and sowing confusion among their ranks. The Germans, still grappling with the unexpected ferocity of the resistance, struggled to adapt to the new reality. Their mechanized units, hampered by the destruction of key routes, were unable to effectively pursue the elusive partisans. The once derided mule caravans had become a symbol of the resistance's ingenuity and determination, challenging the Germans' perception of their own invincibility. As the sabotage operations escalated, the German command began to realize the severity of the situation. The disruption of the Pindus Pass had far-reaching implications, threatening the stability of their occupation and undermining their efforts to maintain control over northern Greece. The ELAS partisans, through their audacious and well-executed plan, had demonstrated their capability to inflict significant damage on the occupying forces. The confrontation at the Pindus Pass marked a turning point in the struggle for Greek liberation. The partisans, once underestimated and ridiculed, had proven their mettle in the face of overwhelming odds. Their actions not only disrupted German operations but also inspired further acts of resistance among the local population, who saw the effectiveness of their support for the partisans. As the summer of 1943 drew to a close, the ELAS fighters continued their campaign of sabotage, determined to maintain the momentum they had gained. The Germans, now acutely aware of the threat posed by the resistance, faced a formidable challenge in their efforts to reassert control over the region. The resistance prepared for a prolonged struggle, as the Greek resistance movement continued to grow in strength and resolve. The execution of the sabotage plan was not without its challenges. The ELAS partisans had to navigate the complexities of coordinating multiple attacks while ensuring the safety of their civilian supporters. The mountainous terrain, while advantageous for ambushes, also posed risks for the partisans, who had to remain vigilant against German patrols and aerial reconnaissance. In the days leading up to the first major operation, the partisans conducted reconnaissance missions to gather intelligence on German movements. They relied on the support of local villages, who provided crucial information about the timing and composition of the supply convoys. This collaboration between the partisans and the civilian population was vital for the success of their operations. The first major attack on a German convoy was a carefully orchestrated affair. The partisans, having identified a vulnerable stretch of road, set up ambush points along the route. As the convoy approached, the ELAS fighters waited in silence, their hearts pounding with anticipation. The moment the lead vehicle entered the kill zone, they sprang into action, detonating explosives and launching a barrage of gunfire. The chaos that ensued was palpable. German soldiers, caught off guard, scrambled for cover as the convoy was engulfed in flames. The partisans, trained in guerrilla tactics, executed their plan with precision, striking hard and fast before retreating into the mountains. The success of this initial ambush sent shockwaves through the German command, who had not anticipated such a bold and effective response from the resistance. In the aftermath of the ambush, the ELAS fighters regrouped to assess the damage inflicted on the German forces. Reports indicated that several vehicles had been destroyed, and a number of German soldiers had been killed or wounded. The psychological impact of the attack was significant, as it shattered the illusion of German invincibility and emboldened the local population to support the resistance. As the weeks progressed, the ELAS partisans continued to refine their tactics, learning from each engagement with the Germans. They employed hit-and-run strategies, striking quickly and then disappearing into the rugged terrain. The Mule Caravans, once a source of mockery for the Germans, became an essential asset, allowing the partisans to transport supplies and explosives to remote locations with ease. The German response to the escalating sabotage was one of increasing frustration and desperation. As their supply lines were systematically dismantled, they resorted to deploying more troops to the region, hoping to regain control over the Pindus Pass. However, the mountainous terrain favored the partisans, who used their knowledge of the landscape to evade capture and continue their operations. The confrontation at the Pindus Pass also had broader implications for the German war effort in Greece. The disruption of supply lines not only affected the immediate operations of the German forces but also had cascading effects on their ability to maintain control over the region. The loss of resources and morale among the troops began to manifest in reports of discontent and unrest within the ranks. As the ELAS fighters continued their campaign, they recognized the importance of maintaining the support of the local population. They worked to cultivate relationships with villages, ensuring that they were not only seen as liberators but also as protectors of their communities. This approach fostered a sense of solidarity and mutual support, further strengthening the resistance movement. The success of the sabotage operations also inspired other resistance groups across Greece to take up arms against the occupiers. The ELAS's actions served as a rallying cry for those who had been hesitant to engage in open defiance. The realization that the Germans could be challenged emboldened many, leading to a surge in resistance activities throughout the country. As the summer of 1943 transitioned into autumn, the ELAS partisans remained committed to their campaign of sabotage. The confrontation at the Pindus Pass had marked a significant turning point in the struggle for Greek liberation, demonstrating the power of determination and ingenuity in the face of overwhelming odds. The Germans, now acutely aware of the threat posed by the resistance, faced a formidable challenge in their efforts to reassert control over the region. The execution of the Sabotage plan not only disrupted German operations but also inspired a renewed sense of hope among the Greek people. The actions of the ELAS partisans had proven that resistance was not only possible but also effective. As the struggle continued, the spirit of defiance and determination would become the driving force behind the fight for liberation in Greece. The summer of 1943 marked a pivotal moment in the Greek resistance against the Axis powers. As the dust settled from the explosive sabotage of the Pindus Pass, the German military command found itself grappling with a stark new reality. The once dismissed Greek partisans, with their seemingly antiquated mule caravans, had executed a plan that not only disrupted vital supply lines but also exposed the vulnerabilities of the German occupation forces in Greece. The initial shockwaves of the sabotage reverberated through the German ranks, as reports of destroyed bridges and severed communication lines flooded into command posts. The Pindus Pass, a critical artery for the movement of troops and supplies between Ioannina and Larissa, had been effectively severed. The Germans, who had prided themselves on their mechanized efficiency, were now forced to confront the limitations of their logistical operations in the rugged Greek terrain. As the reality of the situation set in, the German command scrambled to assess the damage and devise a response. The loss of the Pindus Pass meant that alternative routes had to be found, but the mountainous landscape offered few viable options. The partisans, well versed in the geography of their homeland, had chosen the targets with precision, ensuring that the disruption would be both immediate and long-lasting. The effect of the sabotage was felt most acutely in the form of supply shortages. German units stationed in northern Greece began to experience delays in the delivery of essential goods, from ammunition and fuel to food and medical supplies. The once steady flow of resources had been reduced to a trickle, leading to frustration and confusion among the troops. Morale, already strained by the challenges of occupying a hostile territory, began to wane as the reality of the situation became apparent. In the days following the sabotage, German officers convened emergency meetings to address the crisis. The intelligence reports they reviewed painted a grim picture. The partisans had not only executed a successful attack but had done so with the support of the local population. This revelation was a bitter pill to swallow for the occupiers, who had underestimated the resolve and resourcefulness of the Greek resistance. As the Germans grappled with the fallout, the ELAS partisans continued their operations, emboldened by their success. The Mule Caravans, formerly mocked by the Germans, had become symbols of defiance and ingenuity. The partisans' ability to strike at the heart of the German supply network demonstrated their capability to inflict significant damage, challenging the occupiers' perception of control. The sabotage of the Pindus Pass also had a profound psychological impact on the local population. News of the successful operation spread quickly, inspiring further acts of resistance among civilians who had previously been hesitant to engage in open defiance. The realization that the German war machine was not invincible galvanized the Greek people, fostering a renewed sense of hope and determination. For the German command, the revelation of the partisans' capabilities necessitated a re-evaluation of their strategy in Greece. The occupation forces, no longer confident in their superiority, faced the daunting task of countering a resistance movement that had proven its ability to strike effectively and with precision. The balance of power in the region had shifted, and the Germans were forced to confront the possibility that their hold on Greece was more tenuous than they had believed. As the summer of 1943 drew to a close, the effect of the sabotage on German operations was undeniable. The partisans' actions had not only disrupted supply lines but had also exposed the vulnerabilities of the occupiers, challenging their assumptions and forcing them to adapt to a new and uncertain reality. The German response to the sabotage was marked by a mix of frustration and aggression. In an attempt to regain control, they intensified their patrols and launched counterinsurgency operations aimed at rooting out the ELAS fighters. However, The mountainous terrain continued to provide the partisans with a tactical advantage, allowing them to evade capture and maintain their operations. As the Germans struggled to adapt, the ELAS partisans capitalized on the confusion within the enemy ranks. They launched additional sabotage operations, targeting not only supply convoys but also communication lines and infrastructure critical to the German war effort. The partisans' ability to strike swiftly and then vanish into the mountains became a hallmark of their strategy, further complicating the Germans' efforts to restore order. The effect of the sabotage on German operations extended beyond immediate logistical challenges. The disruption of supply lines led to a ripple effect throughout the German military structure in Greece. Units that had relied on the Pindus Pass for reinforcements and supplies found themselves increasingly isolated, leading to a decline in operational effectiveness and morale. As the ELAS partisans continued to execute their campaign, the German command faced mounting pressure to respond decisively. The realization that the Greek resistance was not only organized, but also capable of inflicting significant damage forced them to reconsider their approach to occupation. The once unquestioned authority of the German military began to erode, as the partisans' successes inspired further acts of defiance among the local population. The sabotage of the Pindus Pass had far-reaching implications for the broader context of World War II. The actions of the ELAS partisans contributed to the growing resistance movements across Europe, demonstrating that even in the face of overwhelming odds, ordinary people could rise up against tyranny. The legacy of their struggle would resonate far beyond the borders of Greece, influencing the course of resistance efforts in other occupied territories. As the autumn of 1943 approached, the effect of the sabotage on German operations continued to unfold. The partisans' ability to disrupt supply lines and challenge the occupiers' control had transformed the landscape of resistance in Greece. The struggle for liberation had become a shared endeavor, deeply rooted in the fabric of Greek society, and the resistance prepared for the next chapter in the fight against occupation. The revelation of the partisans' capabilities and the subsequent impact on German operations underscored the importance of local knowledge and community support in resistance efforts. The ELAS fighters, drawing on their intimate understanding of the terrain and the unwavering commitment of the local population, had demonstrated that effective resistance was possible even against a formidable adversary. As the season changed, the resolve of the Greek resistance only grew stronger. The actions taken at the Pindus Pass had not only disrupted German operations but had also ignited a fire of defiance that would continue to burn in the hearts of the Greek people. The struggle for liberation was far from over, but the successes of the ELAS partisans had laid a foundation for future victories in the fight against oppression. The sabotage of the Pindus Pass marked a significant turning point in the struggle for Greek liberation, but it also unleashed a wave of consequences that reverberated through the landscape of occupied Greece. The German response to the ELAS partisans' audacious actions was swift, brutal, and calculated, aimed at reasserting control and deterring further acts of defiance. In the immediate aftermath of the sabotage, German forces initiated a campaign of reprisals that targeted entire communities suspected of supporting the resistance. Villages near the Pindus Pass, which had provided shelter and resources to the partisans, became the focus of violent retribution. German troops, often accompanied by local collaborators, descended upon these villages with a singular purpose: to root out the resistance and instill fear in the hearts of the populace. The brutality of the German reprisals was staggering. Homes were ransacked, livestock slaughtered, and entire families were subjected to imprisonment or execution. The occupiers employed tactics of collective punishment, a strategy designed to send a clear message that any support for the resistance would be met with severe consequences. This approach was not only a means of retaliation but also a desperate attempt to break the spirit of the Greek people. As the dust settled from the initial wave of reprisals, the consequences of the sabotage operation became painfully evident. The human cost was staggering. Entire families were torn apart, and communities were left in ruins. The struggle for liberation, while noble in its aims, exacted a heavy toll on those caught in the crossfire. The ELAS partisans, aware of the risks their actions posed to innocent civilians, grappled with the moral implications of their campaign. They understood that their fight against the occupiers could lead to suffering for those they sought to protect. Yet, in the face of such brutality, the German response failed to achieve its intended effect. Rather than deterring further acts of resistance, the violence only served to strengthen the resolve of the Greek people. The stories of those who had suffered at the hands of the occupiers became rallying cries for the resistance, fueling a sense of unity and determination among the population. The ELAS partisans, undeterred by the reprisals, continued their operations with renewed vigor, bolstered by the knowledge that their actions had forced the Germans to reveal their true nature. The moral dilemmas faced by the resistance fighters were compounded by the harsh realities of occupation. Many civilians were forced to weigh the risks of supporting the ELAS against the potential consequences for themselves and their families. The fear of retribution loomed large, yet a significant number chose to stand with the partisans, providing food, shelter, and information to aid their efforts. This choice reflected a deep-seated belief in the cause of liberation and a willingness to confront the occupiers, even at great personal risk. As the German reprisals continued, the ELAS partisans found themselves at a crossroads. They were acutely aware of the suffering their actions could cause, yet they also understood that the fight for liberation required sacrifice. The moral complexities of their struggle weighed heavily on their conscience, yet the urgency of their mission propelled them forward. They recognized that the longer the occupation persisted, the greater the suffering of the Greek people would become. The consequences of the sabotage operation extended beyond the immediate violence of the reprisals. The disruption of German supply lines had far-reaching implications for the occupiers, leading to logistical challenges that would persist throughout the occupation. The loss of the Pindus Pass forced the Germans to divert resources and attention away from other areas, stretching their forces thin and exposing vulnerabilities that the resistance could exploit. The psychological impact of the sabotage on the German military was profound. The realization that their control over northern Greece was not as secure as they had believed forced a re-evaluation of their strategies. In time, the occupiers faced a formidable challenge from a resistance movement that had proven its ability to strike effectively and with precision. The balance of power in the region had shifted, and the Germans were forced to confront the possibility that their hold on Greece was more tenuous than they had anticipated. As the autumn of 1943 approached, the consequences of the sabotage operation continued to unfold. The German reprisals, while devastating, had failed to break the spirit of the resistance. Instead, they had galvanized the Greek people, fostering a sense of unity and determination that would prove crucial in the ongoing struggle for liberation. The ELAS partisans, emboldened by their success and the support of the local population, prepared to escalate their operations, fully aware of the moral complexities that lay ahead. In the wake of the sabotage of the Pindus Pass and the subsequent German reprisals, the Greek resistance movement underwent a profound transformation. The events of 1943 had not only exposed the vulnerabilities of the German occupiers but had also galvanized the Greek people, leading to the strengthening of resistance networks across the country. The aftermath of the sabotage operation marked a turning point in the struggle for liberation, as the ELAS partisans and the civilian population united in their resolve to confront the occupiers. The success of the ELAS partisans in disrupting German supply lines served as a powerful catalyst for change. The operation demonstrated the effectiveness of coordinated resistance efforts, inspiring others to join the cause. As news of the sabotage spread, local networks of support grew stronger, with civilians increasingly willing to risk their lives to aid the partisans. The transformation of the resistance movement was characterized by a growing sense of unity and purpose, as the Greek people began to coalesce around the common goal of liberation. Central to this transformation was the role of the ELAS partisans, who emerged as a unifying force within the resistance. Their success in executing the sabotage operation had earned them the respect and admiration of the Greek people, bolstering their ranks with new recruits eager to join the fight. The partisans' ability to operate effectively in the challenging terrain of northern Greece became a source of inspiration for others, demonstrating that the occupiers could be challenged and defeated. As the resistance movement grew in strength, so too did its impact on the German occupiers. The partisans' ability to strike at strategic targets and disrupt enemy operations forced the Germans to divert resources and attention away from other areas, stretching their forces thin. The occupiers, no longer confident in their control over Greece, faced a formidable challenge from a resistance movement that had become increasingly sophisticated and coordinated. The strengthening of resistance networks was also facilitated by the establishment of more formalized structures of communication and coordination. The ELAS fighters recognized the importance of information and intelligence, working to develop systems that allowed for the efficient sharing of resources and strategies. This organizational evolution enabled the resistance to operate with greater precision and effectiveness, enhancing their ability to carry out future operations. As the resistance movement grew, the moral dilemmas faced by the ELAS partisans became increasingly complex. They were acutely aware of the suffering inflicted upon innocent civilians as a result of the German reprisals, yet they also understood that their fight for liberation required sacrifice. The urgency of their mission propelled them forward, even as they grappled with the ethical implications of their actions. The struggle for liberation was not merely a military endeavor, it was a deeply moral one, fraught with difficult choices and painful consequences. The transformation of the resistance networks also had a profound impact on the morale of the Greek people. The success of the partisans and the growing strength of the resistance movement provided a sense of hope and empowerment, reinforcing the belief that liberation was possible. The stories of bravery and sacrifice became a source of inspiration, encouraging others to join the struggle and contribute to the cause. The collective experience of occupation and the shared suffering endured at the hands of the Germans fostered a sense of solidarity that transcended individual grievances. As 1943 drew to a close, the transformation of the Greek resistance movement was evident. The events surrounding the sabotage of the Pindus Pass had galvanized the Greek people, leading to the strengthening of resistance networks and the emergence of a more unified and determined movement. The struggle for liberation had become a shared endeavor, deeply rooted in the fabric of Greek society, and the resistance prepared for the next chapter in the fight against occupation. The aftermath of the sabotage operation also served to highlight the resilience of the human spirit in the face of adversity. The Greek people, despite the suffering inflicted upon them, demonstrated remarkable courage and determination. The moral complexities of their struggle only served to deepen their commitment to the cause, as they recognized that the fight for liberation was not just about military victories but also about the preservation of their dignity and humanity. In the months that followed, the ELAS partisans continued to adapt and evolve, learning from their experiences and the challenges they faced. The transformation of the resistance movement was not merely a response to the immediate circumstances, it was a reflection of the enduring spirit of the Greek people, who refused to be cowed by the occupiers' brutality. The enduring legacy of the sabotage of the Pindus Pass would resonate for years to come, shaping the course of the resistance and the struggle for liberation in Greece. As the winter of 1943 approached, the Greek resistance movement stood at a crossroads. The events of the past months had transformed the landscape of occupation, and the resolve of the Greek people had been tested and strengthened. The struggle for liberation was far from over, but the foundation had been laid for a more coordinated and effective resistance. The ELAS partisans, emboldened by their success and the support of the local population, prepared to escalate their operations, fully aware of the moral complexities that lay ahead. The sabotage of the Pindus Pass and the subsequent rise of the ELAS partisans left an indelible mark on the history of Greek resistance during World War II. The actions taken in 1943 demonstrated the power of ingenuity and determination in the face of overwhelming odds, inspiring future generations to remember the sacrifices made by their ancestors. This legacy is not merely a historical footnote, but a testament to the resilience of the Greek spirit and its quest for freedom. As World War II came to an end in 1945, Greece found itself at a crossroads. The struggle against Axis occupation had forged a national identity rooted in resistance and resilience. However, the end of the war did not bring immediate peace or stability. The political landscape of Greece was fraught with tension, as the power vacuum left by the retreating German forces led to a civil war between the communist-led partisans and the government supported by Western powers. The enduring legacy of the resistance movement played a significant role in shaping the post-war political climate. The ELAS, which had emerged as a formidable force against the occupiers, found itself at odds with the newly established government. The ideals of freedom and liberation that had fueled the resistance were now at risk of being overshadowed by ideological divisions. The civil war that erupted in 1946 was a direct consequence of the unresolved tensions stemming from the occupation and the differing visions for Greece's future. Despite the turmoil, the enduring legacy of the resistance movement continued to resonate with the Greek people. The stories of bravery and sacrifice became a source of inspiration for those who sought to build a new Greece, one that honored the sacrifices made during the war. The resistance had instilled a sense of national pride and unity, which many hoped would guide the country through its post-war challenges. In the years following the war, the enduring legacy of the Greek resistance movement was commemorated through various means. Monuments, memorials, and cultural works emerged as tributes to those who had fought and suffered for the cause of liberation. These commemorations served not only to honor the memory of the fallen but also to reinforce the collective identity of the Greek people. One of the most significant memorials is the monument to the heroes of the resistance in Athens, which stands as a testament to the courage and sacrifice of the partisans. Erected in the heart of the capital, the monument serves as a reminder of the struggle for freedom and the enduring spirit of resistance. Annual ceremonies are held to commemorate key events in the resistance movement, drawing together survivors, families of the fallen, and citizens to pay their respects and reflect on the lessons of the past. In addition to physical memorials, the enduring legacy of the resistance has been preserved in literature, film, and art. Writers and filmmakers have sought to capture the experiences of those who lived through the occupation and the resistance, ensuring that the stories of bravery and sacrifice are not forgotten. These cultural works have played a crucial role in shaping the national narrative, highlighting the importance of resistance in the face of tyranny. The commemoration of the resistance movement has also extended to educational initiatives, with schools and universities incorporating the history of the ELAS and the broader resistance into their curricula. This emphasis on education serves to instill a sense of pride in younger generations, fostering an understanding of the sacrifices made for their freedom. The effect of the Greek resistance movement extends far beyond the immediate post-war period. The events of 1943 and the subsequent rise of the ELAS have left a lasting imprint on the collective consciousness of the Greek people. The legacy of resistance has become a defining characteristic of Greek identity, influencing the country's approach to challenges both domestic and international. The spirit of resistance is evident in the way Greece has navigated its post-war history. The struggles for democracy and social justice in the decades that followed the war can be traced back to the ideals that fueled the resistance movement. The commitment to freedom and the fight against oppression have remained central to the Greek narrative, shaping the country's political landscape and its relationships with other nations. Moreover, the enduring legacy of the Greek resistance has resonated beyond its borders, influencing other struggles for liberation around the world. The example set by the Greek partisans demonstrated the effectiveness of grassroots resistance and the potential for ordinary people to challenge and overcome seemingly insurmountable odds. The stories of the ELAS and their fight against the German occupiers have inspired movements for justice and freedom in various contexts, reinforcing the universal principles of resistance against tyranny. The enduring spirit of resistance has also found expression in contemporary Greek society. In times of crisis, whether economic or political, the enduring legacy of the resistance serves as a reminder of the strength and resilience of the Greek people. The collective memory of the struggle against occupation fosters a sense of solidarity and unity, encouraging citizens to come together in the face of adversity. As Greece continues to grapple with modern challenges, the lessons of the resistance movement remain relevant. The commitment to freedom, justice, and solidarity that characterized the ELAS and the broader resistance movement serves as a guiding principle for those who seek to address contemporary issues. The legacy of resistance is not merely a relic of the past but a living force that continues to shape the aspirations and actions of the Greek people. The enduring legacy of the Greek resistance movement is a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit in the face of oppression. The events of 1943, marked by the sabotage of the Pindus Pass, serve as a reminder that even in the darkest of times, hope and determination can prevail. The sacrifices made by the partisans and the support of the local population exemplify the strength of collective action and the belief that liberation is possible. As Greece reflects on its history, the enduring legacy of the resistance movement stands as a beacon of hope for future generations. The stories of courage and sacrifice inspire a commitment to justice and freedom, reminding all that the struggle against tyranny is ongoing. The spirit of resistance, forged in the crucible of conflict, remains a defining characteristic of the Greek people, influencing their approach to challenges both domestic and international. In conclusion, the enduring legacy of the Greek resistance movement is one of resilience, courage, and hope. The events of 1943 and the actions of the ELAS partisans have left an indelible mark on the history of Greece, shaping the national identity and influencing the course of the country's future. As the Greek people continue to honor the sacrifices of their ancestors, they carry forward the enduring spirit of resistance, ensuring that Norway's fight for freedom and justice remains a central tenet of their collective consciousness.